Hello and welcome to another FL Studio tutorial in which I try to make this. Bang! Yes we are. Okay. So, here is the proper version. Etc, etc. And in the song... Right, I have the pattern here, and let's listen to it without any effects. That was without effects. Okay, never mind. That was it without effects. So let's try and recreate it. As always, this sound is so simple I can remember it in its entirety. Or, well, I did just spend quite a while looking at it, but oh well. Right. So I'll try to make it again. So it is basically the main meat of this sound, as you heard a second ago, is Harmor. There's barely any effects on it at all. And the main meat of the Harmor is a custom filter shape. So the way these work is if you draw, say, a big ass spike there like that, something like that, then as you change the frequency, that shape is reflected in the final sound. So if I do another one, so you can sort of see the shape I drew here is reflected there, which is relatively self-explanatory. Now normally if I'm doing a custom filter shape I'll just dick around with some totally random shape and just see if it sounds odd. However, this time I did something sort of along these kind of lines. I can't remember exactly how I did it, but it was something like that. So it's basically two big peaks, kind of like that. Now when you do that, you have the option to change the width, which basically scales this vertically here. So it's basically how wide this is interpreted to be. Which is nice, because you can already hear that it's kind of vocally... Because it is a common technique when you're EQing something to make it sound vowely, and that is to take two huge great big peaks and automate them to go close together or far apart. And that's what basically all that's happening here. Now, it doesn't sound much like a bass, that's mostly because it's an octave too high. But it still doesn't sound as full. We need to turn the mix level of this down somehow, and there's no real direct way of doing that. But this knob affects whether the two filters are in parallel or in serial. So if they're in parallel, the signal is split, sent to both the filters at the same time, and then the result is merged again, and that's the result of both filters. Whereas if it's in serial, it does one first and then routes the result of that to the second. So should it do one first and then the other, or do them both at once, basically is what this knob says. And you can fade between doing them in serial or doing them in parallel. And all I did was just turn this down a bit, turn it a little bit to parallel, because this second filter doesn't do anything. This effectively becomes a mix knob for the first filter. So now we've got that vowelness, but without losing the original sound. And in the original, I think the frequency, for whatever reason, was up here. And that was presumably just because I was playing around to try and find the best place. So actually, let's take a look at the original. Ah, I see. Another thing I did was... So, by the way, you just middle-click a knob to reset it. That's a shortcut for right-click, reset. And I do that here to keyboard tracking. Now, what keyboard tracking does is... Now, normally... Actually, let's turn this off for a second. Normally, you'll see the... And I turn the mix level up again. You see the two lines I drew are here. And if I play a much lower note, they're still there, in the same place. If I play a much higher note, they're still in the same place. So they don't follow the note you're playing. And sometimes that's not what you want, because that's what a regular EQ would do. But here, that is not... So sometimes that is what you want, because that's what an EQ would do. But here, that's not what I want, because I want to sort of shape the timbre of the sound, however you pronounce it. And if I'm going to do that, I middle click this to make it follow. what you're playing exactly. And if you turn it up a bit more, it will move up and down faster than your note you're playing moves up and down. And if you turn it down a bit, it's slower. So this affects how much it follows the key you're pressing. And if you right click it to put it to the default, well, to put it to the middle, it will follow it exactly. Which is exactly what we want. So turning this down again a bit. So it's about here in the original, I think. That sort of thing. Another thing I did in the original was have some sort of funny phaser settings. I can't really remember. Condom, of course, what else? And so I had the width on modulation X. As always. It was a bit like that, actually. And then I had a sort of slightly weird filter shape with the offset, phaser shape, sorry, with the offset on modulation X a little bit as well. So if I try and roughly imitate those settings a bit, where are we at? Condom. And then phaser offset, modulation X. So if I just turn this manually, so I quite like to use a phaser as a sort of filter to make things sound more vocal like this. Usually by just automating the offset in the playlist, but here I added it to modulation X, kind of like a serum macro, and then automate this knob. Decent. And that is more or less it. You'll see I've used image time offset here, but you can ignore that because there's no image. So presumably when I first made this, I had an image here, but I don't anymore, so this isn't doing anything. You can see I've changed the filter shape, but other than that, that's about it. Other than compression and a tiny bit of distortion, that is the entirety of the Hammer. So a little bit of distortion. What settings did I use exactly? It was pretty much this. And compression, of course. No, it's not exactly the same, but it basically is the same. And you can see the note I left for myself here, automate the vibrato amount in the intense parts. So I put the speed at the very highest and da 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 da. So you see that's what I was doing here. So here's the modulation X, the vocal amount, and the vibrato depth. So that's exactly what I was doing with the chords in the last tutorial, to make them sound jazzier somewhat. Other than that, that is basically the entirety of the sound, apart from the effects, of which there is an OTT used to cut the bass out for some bizarre reason, and turn up the high and the mids. Not really much to talk about there. So if I turn the OTT on, so, and a dimension expander, and that is about it. This ambience is never used, presumably because I used it and then decided I didn't like it, so nah, don't like that. So that is that for that nice vowel sound. Probably one of my favourite sounds in the song, to be honest, because it goes really well with the other basses wherever they are. That is the same bass that plays around here somewhere. I can't remember where exactly. Where's the bit I'm looking for? That's the bit I was looking for. It just plays along with the other main basses. Right. That does it for that video. That is everything. See you in the next one.